been a while since I've done a video, so I'm feeling a little bit nervous.
Yeah, you gotta clear that bottleneck.
Monday Motivational Madness. A crazy good way to start your week.
Hola, you amazing artists, and welcome to Monday Motivational Madness, which is brought to you by our patrons. This is actually something that we do with our patrons weekly, and we are now going to do it on the main channel. So hopefully you enjoy this Monday Motivational Madness. So today we're going to talk about bottlenecks, because this is something that we've been experiencing here, both Clea and I, when it comes to just being creative or doing anything, really. You may not realize it, but one creative area of stuckness can spill over into just about every other creative area. In fact, it doesn't even have to be a creative area in order for it to spill over into other areas of your life. For example, we have a lot of stuff going on. We are currently putting together our art studio, navigating, remodeling our bedroom. I'm working on finishing my books. Clea is working on commissions. We're putting together a new media schedule for all the channels. Also making unexpected home repairs in our new house and dealing with the weather. That list could seem really overwhelming, but it was one or two things on that list that was really causing a lot of distress. When you end up getting a little bit stressed out about one thing that you're working on, whether it's a project or anything, an art project, something to do with home repair or anything else, it could actually add a little bit of emotional distress to everything else that you're doing. So for me, one of the things that was causing a little bit of distress was the videos on the Adventure channel. We moved in and we started recording the process of moving in and different projects that we were working on here. But what ended up happening was we were so busy with things that they just kind of kept stacking up and adding up and adding up. And what that ended up causing was a bottleneck. And that really had an impact on everything else that I wanted to do.
It's so amazing, like with the Adventure channel, it's amazing how quickly it can escalate, right? So it goes from having a backlog of footage, be like, well, I don't even know how I'm gonna put the footage together, which spills over into, well, I'm not even sure if there's a point to recording new footage, right? Because there's a backlog, so then we're not recording what we're doing.
Which then spills over into like, people don't even care. Like, why are we even doing this?
Why do we even have any channels at all? Maybe we just shouldn't do any videos on any channels.
Yeah, that's... It's an Ouroboros of if it starts adding up and adding up and adding up, it really does kind of put a standstill to other areas of your life as well. So for example, this has happened to me in the past where like I had several art projects going on and other art projects that were unfinished, and I had started new things and things got a little bit overwhelming, and what ended up happening was that my art projects themselves kind of became this bottleneck. That when you get that bottleneck because you're not finishing things, what ends up happening is it just, you get stagnant, you get stuck. Why would one project create a standstill for other projects? There's been research that's been done that shows that like our brain, like we could really just kind of focus on 5 things at once. We could have 5 things in our brain jar just rattling around there of things that maybe we need to do or things that need to be done. Obviously, if you've lived life, you know that usually there's a lot more stuff that needs to be done that you might have floating around in your brain. What was interesting about one of the studies that they did was that they found that when a person is stressed out, actually you can only really focus on 1 or 2 things instead of having that like 5 thing that you could focus on. So for example, if I had 10 or 15 projects going on and just the fact that I was overwhelmed because I wasn't finishing things and I had all these things going on, that actually would cause me to get stagnant.
This video is clearing a bottleneck for us.
Yes. It was easier to just kind of put off this project or that project because it was just too much. And then what ended up happening was that I wouldn't really work on much of anything else because you get stuck.
Yeah, the stress factor, right? So like I visualize it like if you can handle 5 things at a time, right? It's like you have 5 lanes open in your brain jar highway, and then you get stressed and overwhelmed, and it's almost like you have a little stickman construction crew come out and they put their little road cones on 3 of the 5 lanes, and then they're basically like standing around checking their cell phones, and you best believe the stickmen are getting paid hourly.
Oh yeah.
So they're not going anywhere
They're not
unless
going
you're
anywhere.
able to clear that that overwhelm factor.
Yeah, you're going to have to clear it because they're not going anywhere. It could also be if one project is overwhelming. And what happens sometimes, like for example, with the Adventure channel, is that there is so much footage that it's going to require me a lot of time to sit down and work on it, to set that time aside. I end up not setting that time aside. I put it off. And then I get more footage, and so the more that it kind of perpetuates itself. It keeps going on. So I have more footage, and now I really don't want to sit down and work on it because it's going to require more time and blah, 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 blah. And it's the same stuff that just goes on. But that project in of itself will cause a bit of a standstill with other projects as well. Unfortunately, what happens is when you put off a project, every time you put that project off, you are actually practicing putting off the project. It becomes almost like a hamster wheel. Like you get really practiced and really good at putting off that thing that you want to work on. Then the bottleneck gets worse, and then you put it off even more, and then you come up with all these brilliant excuses on why it is that you can't work on it. So it makes the problem worse. It makes the bottleneck even worse. The truth is that it could be anything really. It could be posting on social media. I know that Clea has an issue where, like, because she doesn't post as often on social media, it actually causes her not to post on social media.
Yeah, social media. Okay, so as dumb as it might sound to some of you, maybe, who don't have social media bottlenecks, basically with me it goes like this. Well, now it's the new year, and I'm not sure why I would even post anything for the new year because I didn't post anything for the holidays, for Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's Eve. So now what? I'm just going to jump in and start posting randomly? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere. Otherwise, it'll be next year, and you won't be posting for the things.
Yeah, do it. Do it.
Do it.
Instead of changing the habit and making it something that you just do, you come up with really brilliant ways to put it off and brilliant excuses too. And the thing about it is that really it could be anything, because when it comes to being an artist, art is part of your life. So if you're putting off projects, chances are that there could be a bottleneck in just about anywhere in your life. Usually with creative projects, you're dealing with emotional issues, you're dealing with doubts, you're dealing with fears and stuff like that. And a lot of times when you put these things off, what ends up happening is that those fears and doubts and the stick man and all that stuff just kind of climbs into that, and it's easier to put it off than to actually move forward with it. So how do I identify a bottleneck? Like, you got to spot it first before you could deal with it.
Well, for me, it's pretty simple. It's any of the things that I think about and go, ugh.
A lot of times those projects start off as like you're excited about them. You're like, yeah, I want to do this thing. I want to do this thing. But then you've put it off for so long that you think about it and you're like, ugh.
Yep.
So truthfully, the way that you identify it is the fact that you already know what that bottleneck is. Because if there's anything that you're like, oh, you know what, I haven't gotten around to this, but I really need to do it. Oh, you know, I've been putting this thing off. Like, I'm not even sure if I want to do this thing, but I have to. Things like that. Like if you hear yourself saying that about stuff where it's like, oh, I just don't have the motivation to get it started, that is usually a thing that has bottlenecked. You've put it off for so long that you can't find the motivation to get started doing it. If you put it off for 5 days, then you've been practicing putting this thing off for 5 days, and it just kind of perpetuates itself. Like now, the next time that it comes up or that you even think like, okay, I better do this, you have 5 days worth of practice of putting it off. So you're probably going to put it off for a 6th day and then a 7th day and then an 8th day. And that is a pattern. That is a pattern of habits that is very easy to get into. So now you've identified it. How do you clear the bottleneck?
Well, that's a good question, because for most of us, the bottleneck thing is the very thing where you think about it, and after you get past, you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. You know, that's the go-to for me. It's like, well, I don't even know.
Yeah, when you've put it off for so long that you want to get started, you're like, I don't even know where to start. What am I supposed to do? I don't even... That's the thing. Like, I know that there's some kind of problem, like some kind of bottleneck. Whenever I hear that tone of voice come out of my mouth, where I'm like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I don't even know where to start. I don't want to do this thing. The trick there is making a decision, making a choice, empowering yourself by making a choice and saying, okay, yes, I am going to do this. Or even the flip side to that, where it's like, do I really want to do this? Do I really actually want to do it? And if you don't want to do it, if maybe you've grown or you've evolved or you've gotten to a place where you're like, I really don't want to do this thing, making the choice is really ultimately what matters. Either you choose that you are going to do this thing, or you choose that, I don't want to do this thing, and you take it off of your queue. If you choose not to do it, then congrats. You've cleared the bottleneck. That's it. You've done it. You've made a choice. You've cleared the bottleneck, you delete it from your mind, and that way it's not bouncing around your brain jar anymore. If you decide that you're not going to do it though, it has to be a real choice. Like there has to be a reason why you're not doing it, whether or not you don't want to anymore, or like it's just you figured out like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. It's got to be a real choice. It can't be just a lazy choice of like, oh, I don't feel like doing that. It has to be something that if you make a choice that you're not going to do it, then you're not going to do it now or ever more. So if it is something that you do want to do, then what do? You do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
So what he means there is just start and understand that it might be sucky and difficult and slow going at first. And that's totally fine.
I like my way of saying do it. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, either way.
Do it. I meant everything you said. It's just less words. It's really going to suck. I'm not going to play around and be like, oh, well, once you figure this out, you're going to be able to do it. It's going to suck because you have practiced putting this thing off for so long that that's what you're going to do. You're basically going to come up with all the brilliant excuses that you've used to put it off before, and any of the things that have been floating around that you not even have used as excuses yet are going to pop up. And you're going to come up with all the reasons on why I don't feel like doing it right now. Well, I'm not motivated. Well, I'm not this. Well, I'm not that. Your habit's going to fight you. It's going to fight you all the way in order to keep the status quo. And the status quo, if you've been putting it off for more than 5 days, is just putting it off. For example, one of the other bottlenecks that I'm working on right now is the book, the Rogue Marketing book and the Money book, all the books that I'm finishing up right now. Because of everything that was going on, I had put off writing the books. What ended up happening was that when it came time to sit down and write the books, I had all these excuses because there's so much else going on of what I needed to do. Now, here's the thing. I want to get my books finished. I want to get my books out there to everybody that pre-ordered them. And yet I was standing in my own way by putting it off one more time because I had gotten really good at putting it off. Even if I was putting it off for good reason, it was still the habit of putting it off that I was going to have to fight through in order to get to the process of writing the book. I had to literally force myself to sit down and work on the book. In fact, I had to force myself to make a schedule to force myself to sit down and work on the book. Sometimes that's the only way to get through is you tell yourself, well, from this time to this time, I'm going to fa-chunk this thing. I'm going to just get started on it. I am going to, you fa-chunk it, you work on it for 5 minutes, you work on it for 15 minutes, and then you decide to stop. But then the next day you form the habit of at least getting it started, because that's the biggest challenge there is getting the process started. If you talk yourself out of it before you even get started, you're never going to get started and you're just going to put it off. And next thing you know, a week has gone by and you haven't worked on this thing. What you want to do if you have a lot of projects, let's say you have a lot of unfinished projects and these are all projects that you want to get to, and you find yourself kind of stagnant, not working on any of these projects. In fact, maybe even starting new projects instead of finishing the projects that you have. What you're going to have to do is start putting some things on shelves. Reevaluate all the projects that you have going on. See if you could bring them down to a maximum of 5 projects. 5 projects that you're working on. Maybe some things are sitting on a shelf so that when you're done with one project here, you could bring that project in. Essentially, pick 5 things and then write the other things down that you want to work on and hide them. Out of sight, out of mind. One of the other things that you're going to want to do is make these projects easy and accessible for you to actually get started on them. If you feel better working on one project, then keep it simple. If you like having 2 or 3 projects, then have 2 or 3 projects. If you like having 5 projects, have 5 projects. Keep it something that you are comfortable bouncing back and forth with. When it comes to art projects, I hate waiting for things to dry. So a lot of times I'll have several other projects that I could bounce back and forth whenever I have to wait on one piece to dry. Or maybe I got stuck on it and I'm like, okay, I don't know, I'm going to revisit this. At least at that point, I'm keeping the momentum going by working on several projects, but I make sure that I don't overwhelm myself by having more than 5. One of the biggest hurdles that I know I had to work through when I was feeling myself getting stuck or getting creative block was that because I had made a habit of this, I was kind of, there was this narrative that I was telling myself that like, oh, I don't finish things. Oh, I don't do, like that I'm not good at following through on my projects. And that's not something that I've experienced in a long time because of the fact that I've chunked the projects, because of the fact that I've identified what the actual problem was. The problem wasn't that I was blocked. The problem was that there was a bottleneck. You might be telling yourself the same narrative and feel like maybe you're stuck or you're blocked or that there's no way that you could work on these projects, that you don't finish things or whatever it is that you might be telling you. There might be people out there that are telling you the same narrative and you believe them because that's the same narrative that you're telling yourself. And the thing about it is that that narrative is just based on habits. So I'm here to tell you that if you're stuck and you don't know how to get yourself out, you can. You can get yourself out. Only you could really get yourself out of feeling stuck or feeling blocked or having a bottleneck. As creatives, we're going to be approaching a lot of projects. We're going to be jumping on things that we get really excited about. We're going to try new things. We're going to experiment. We're going to do all kinds of things that are going to push us outside of our comfort zone. And a lot of times that requires taking on several projects at once, or like thinking about doing this in the future, or I really want to do this, or I have this ambition. I think that that's one of the dilemmas that we run into as artists, is that we do get excited. We get pulled into so many different directions, and then we end up overwhelming ourselves. And we don't have to. You could write things down. You could put them on a shelf for later. It's not like your art journey is ending right now, as long as you don't allow yourself to get stagnant by having a bottleneck, by having all the ideas. Your ideas aren't going to go anywhere if you write them down. Just keep them alive in that way. But be reasonable with yourself with the amount of stuff that you can do right now, and give yourself a schedule if you have to. Give yourself whatever it is that you need to do, whatever it is that it takes in order for you to keep moving and keep moving forward and not get stuck by your own ideas. Because if you're feeling any kind of blockage, it is most likely due to some kind of bottleneck. And yes, I get it. Sometimes life things happen. What I realized with everything that's going on right now, because we have a lot going on, was that unless you allow yourself to put some things off, to prioritize, to like really decide what is it that I'm going to focus on this week or this month or today, what is it that I'm going to focus on, and keeping that list to something that is actually manageable. Right? Because we have all this ambition. We want to do it all. We want to get out there. We want to conquer the world with our art. We want to share our voice. We want to do all these things, but you do have to keep in mind that yes, you can do all of it. You can do all of it, but pace yourself. Pace yourself and give yourself 5 things at max at a time to work on, and then keep those other things in queue. You're always going to have creative ideas. There are always going to be things that are jumping into your mind. Can you do this? Of course you can. Are you a creative genius? Yes, you are. Are you going to accomplish all the things that you want to accomplish? Yes. But just pace yourself. Most importantly, identify the bottlenecks and then make a choice. Make a choice. Are you going to do the thing? Are you not going to do the thing? If you're not going to do the thing, get rid of it. And if you're going to do the thing, then do the thing. Don't talk about doing the thing. Don't say, oh, someday I'm going to do the thing. Just do the thing. Even if it is 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, whatever it is, just do the thing. Get that movement going. Get that momentum going. Because that momentum is powerful. And that's it, you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, got something out of the Monday Motivational Madness brought to you by our patrons. There are a lot of changes going on with our schedule. For example, tonight we're actually going to be doing a live stream band practice on our music channel. You excited about band practice? Live band practice?
I mean, I don't even know where my lyrics are for the songs that we're working on.
Yeah, that's why we're...
Oh, yeah, that's what I was battling against all week leading up to this. Yeah, we're going to do it. It's going to be super awkward
Yeah.
and amazing.
Yeah, and you just got to do it. And we are going to be awkward because, we're awkward.
Yep.
I'm glad to say that we're back, but we're still tweaking and figuring that out, but we are back. And again, I want to thank our patrons. They're the reason that we did not lose our minds while we were doing all of this stuff. Very supportive, and of course, they're the reasons that we're able to do these videos at the moment. And also, I want to thank you guys for being here, for following us on our journey, and just being overall awesome and creative. Hopefully you got something out of this. I absolutely freaking adore you. I'm about to end this video. You want to say goodbye to everyone?
Indeed, I do. Mwah. Good day.
If you like this and you want to watch something more like this, just click right over here to subscribe. And that's it. I will say goodbye. Adios.